Subscribers to NewOrleans.Football get all of our news and analysis and much, much more, an extra podcast every week, and all of our draft coverage. So make sure you are locked in for that today. The draft kicks off tomorrow night. We'll have all of your picks covered all throughout the draft. Get the latest news and analysis on all those guys. Sign up using the code NOF to save 20% on your first payment. Visit NewOrleans.Football/subscribe. Welcome back to another episode of NewOrleans.Football presented by PJ's Coffee. We're coming to you from our studio right next door to Matt Bauer's Ford dealership. If you need a new car, make sure you check him out at one of his many locations. They will get you the best cars, the best prices, the best customer care at the best car buying experience. Every one of his dealerships, the same standards across the board. Make sure you check one of them out today. We have an outstanding show for you guys today. James Hurst joins us right after the break to talk about his decision to retire from the Saints. We'll get into that conversation and everything else you need to know leading into Thursday night's draft right after this. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out. Are you looking for the perfect engagement ring? Look no further than Friend & Company Fine Jewelers' new engagement salon. This new area houses a wide selection of engagement rings to choose from in all cuts, sizes, and colors. Their experienced staff offer 5-star customer care to help you find the perfect ring to express your love. Visit their new engagement salon today. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the perfect ring for the perfect moment and also for the perfect person. 7713 Maple Street between Adams and Burdett Street. 504-866-5433. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Check them out at friendandcompany.com. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. Let's get into our lead topic presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, the official jewelers of the New Orleans Saints. Friend & Company Fine Jewelers has an outstanding engagement salon, so if you're looking for a ring to ask that special question to that special someone, go there and get your special ring for them. Ken will take care of you. They got rings in all different sizes, different prices. You'll get the most beautiful ring for your beautiful lady. All right. While you're there, make sure you check out their rings, their fleur-de-lis their fleur-de-lis earring and necklace that you see on the screen. The earrings are priced at $1,100. The necklace is priced at $1,350.
We had some news break this afternoon with Saints offensive lineman James Hurst announcing his retirement via his own Instagram. So we'll talk about what that means for the Saints heading into this week after the draft. This week going into the draft and then after that. But, we got a chance to talk to him in studio, and here's that.
Yeah, been thinking about it really last year, or not last year, 2 seasons ago now. I just started thinking about it. To be honest, I was undrafted, so I didn't ever think I'd get this close anyway. But just, started thinking about it. My wife and I were trying to get pregnant, and it was taking a long time. So, you start thinking about life and what's next and what's most important to you. And it was definitely my wife and hopefully starting a family. And then, I played, started so many games in New Orleans that the body starts to break down a little more. And, early in my career, I was definitely more of a 6-man backup, and I'd start, a game here or there. But the toll on your body, is nothing what it is when you're a full-time starter. So I think that definitely factored in as well. But, I just honestly just really happy about it. Feel like it's definitely the right move at the right time for me. And I have no regrets about my career and the way it ended. And obviously other than, winning on the field didn't go quite as we'd hoped. But for me personally, it couldn't have gone any better and exceeded all expectations that I ever had.
Well, yeah, you should be proud of this career. 10 years, undrafted, Baltimore Ravens, New Orleans Saints. The round numbers on here, 10 years, 150 games. If you include the playoffs, you got to 98 starts. But I'll count it as 100.
Yeah,
And thanks for joining us here on NewOrleans.Football. Kind of sad for us. You've been one of our absolute favorite guys in the locker room. Obviously
thank you.
essential to the Saints. I mean, a little under the radar when you signed, but then as valuable as any offensive lineman they've had. And so, yeah, I mean, what did come to New Orleans mean for your career? It feels like it gave your career a second life.
Absolutely did. Yeah, when I came to New Orleans, I was in the midst of what I'll say is a totally bogus PED suspension. The Ravens released me. Actually, I think it was like a day before the state of North Carolina shut down due to COVID. And so I'm out of a job, one that I felt like was really honestly unfair. It's something I didn't do. I guess a little backstory into that. I had all of my supplements tested and, went through all those steps and they never found anything. So to this day, I have no idea how or why, I was flagged for performance enhancing drugs, but I was, and I ended up in being released by the Ravens. And then the state shuts down with a pandemic and no one knows what's going to happen, all over the world. So it was a huge time of uncertainty for me. And honestly, that was after my 6th season. I considered retirement. I was like, what does this look like? Don't want to move teams. Loved Baltimore so much, so many great people there. But the Saints reached out and, signed with them very quickly. And from day one, I just felt immediately respected and valued. No one ever questioned my character for that suspension. And that just felt nice, honestly, to come and to be wanted, to contribute. When I signed, it was to be a depth piece and to, provide support when guys went down. And I was able to do that in my first season. And we, had a really great year in 2020. So New Orleans, I can't say enough about the team, the organization, the city. Everyone has really just treated me so well from day one. And it did, like you said, it totally revitalized my love for football. I was able to really enjoy it again. And it's given me some of my best memories that I've had in my career.
All right. Now, why should all the Saints fans not panic? Because you may have noticed there were already some question marks along the offensive line, and I think a lot of those question marks were filled with, well, James Hurst could play here. James Hurst could play here. But what do you think is the current state of the offensive line? I don't know if you got to meet any of the new coaches they brought in. You certainly know what some of the guys that we don't know what they're going to be, Trevor Penning, Nick Saldiveri, and where they are right now.
Yeah, I think I had a short conversation with our new O-line coach, and then after that spoke with a lot of the current O-linemen there, and just, what their thoughts were moving forward. And I think I know there's a lot of momentum with how the season ended. Obviously, it was we underperformed from every expectation at the start of that season, and that was unfortunate. But I think by the end of the year, people on the team were able to see and to feel like, hey, this is what we can be. This is what we expected of ourselves all along. And so to finish the season the way we did, I think it was very positive. And that does a ton for how you enter the next season. We got a quarterback that we know is a player that we know can get the job done and score points for us. And it's no surprise to anyone in the offensive line room that, hey, a ton of our success, particularly on offense, is going to come with how well the offensive line plays. And, I think even last year we had some of those thoughts, and we knew that we failed the team on a few occasions and didn't play well enough as a unit to help the team win a game. But I think looking forward, there's a lot of positivity there. There's a lot of youth there. I think Trevor, obviously, as everyone knows, is so physically talented. And, when I say this, it's no slight to Coach Marone or anyone that's worked with him in the past. But, with a young guy that's unproven, who knows what happens when he gets a new offensive line coach. Playing under so many coaches as I have, everyone says the same things differently. And so you never know. Like, Coach might come in and might say something that just, breaks it wide open for Trevor and helps him be the player that we all think that he can be. And then, speaking about Nick, man, he's a great guy in the locker room. really hard worker, very, physically gifted, tall, strong, can move really well, long arms, all the traits that you're looking for. And I think, everyone's excited for his second season. That's typically when you see a big jump. And, the way he's worked and the way that he'll be ready to go this year and excited about his opportunity, I think will be really important for the team. And I think, just to pile some pressure on him, it's his ability to be a player and to be a contributor will go a long way for the success of the offensive line.
James, did you know, when did you know exactly that you weren't going to come back and play? Was that something you knew, going into last season? Or was that something that kind of came more about this offseason?
Yeah, so my wife and I actually had a conversation in July. Like I said, year 9, really contemplated it, thought a lot about it before the season, during the season, and then, kind of left it open-ended going into that offseason before my 10th season. And, as training goes on and as training gets more and more intense as the offseason progresses, it was tough for me. And, I knew what was required of myself. And I think a lot of days, I woke up, whether it was my body hurting a little bit more or just the drive, it became hard. And I think that opened my eyes to really considering the possibility. And so, like I said earlier, my wife and I have been trying to start a family. And, the way it all worked out in July, her and I decided that it was probably going to be my last season, my 10th year. And 3 weeks later, found out that she was pregnant. And so I think for us, that was an affirmation. That was an affirmation from God that, hey, this is the right decision. And it gave us so much peace of mind that, we can go out and we can give it everything we got, whether that's training, that's practice, that's, relationships, that's being in the locker room, that's, going out to eat with teammates, doing all those things and really soaking it up. So we had made that decision and, going through the season, we knew in all likelihood it would be my last year. But I think kind of having that decision mostly out of the way really helps us to just enjoy the last moments and soak it all up.
And what do you plan to do now besides being a father? Do you have any plans? Are you going to coach? Are you going to join the media? Any thoughts on what comes next?
Definitely being the father is step number one. And then I've been working on my MBA in the off seasons. The NFL is a program with Indiana University, and I've been working through that the last couple of years. So I want to finish that up, hopefully by next spring. And then after that, we'll see. I love coffee. I love the coffee world, the food world. So something maybe in that realm. Maybe work as a barista, see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of what's
on my radar. PJ's franchise in North Carolina.
What's that?
I said you could put a PJ's franchise in North Carolina. Hey, they're expanding all over the country.
Bring a little taste of New Orleans up here.
There you go.
Well, awesome. Real quick, I assume the Saints have kind of known about your plans all offseason and acted accordingly. Now reworking your contract seems to put a puzzle piece together, I think.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of part of it. And I had conversations with Mickey and Kai and let them know. And, this won't come as a surprise to them today. They've been in the loop, and I wanted to, there's such a sensitive timing to all of this. For me personally, obviously being my decision, but then obviously just wanting to be respectful to the team and, not just dropping this on them, so soon. And so I've let them know and hopefully plenty of time to be able to plan accordingly, with the draft coming up on free agency, and just hopefully giving them enough time to plan for whatever changes they need to make.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you for the time you've given us today. Obviously a special time. Best of luck to you and your family. That's awesome. And thanks for everything over the last few years. You really, the insight that you give means a lot to us and all the people following us. So
thanks so much for saying that.
All right, nigga Mike. So what does this mean for the Saints going forward?
Well, they just lost a pretty important safety net. I mean, look, we obviously have talked about wanting to upgrade either the left tackle or the left guard position from James Hurst, but for the last 3 or 4 years, he's been the most reliable guy in either spot when there's been injuries or a first-round draft pick that hasn't panned out. And I think we were operating all along like, if they draft a left tackle, then Hurst could play left guard, or if Saldiveri's not ready. If they draft a guard, then Hurst can play left tackle. If Trevor Penning's not ready, I mean, it makes it feel like even more of a must that they have to draft a guy, which we already considered a must, and maybe even more likely that Andrus Peat gets that phone call if they only draft one guy early this weekend.
It's scary. You look at the guard depth chart. I mean, it's Cesar Ruiz, it's Nick Saldivari, and Tommy Kramer. I mean, that's tough. You look at the offensive line across the board. It's Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz are the starters, and I don't know who else. I mean, at least with Hurst, like you felt like there was at least.
That's
the
that base level, the Hurst level, and now there's a lot more unknown.
He was at least like, well, what if this goes wrong or this goes wrong? He was the answer to 2 questions. Now he's the answer to no questions, and I think it's a very dire situation. I think they have to figure something out. Kind of, is it double dip in the draft now? Is that a must?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, first of all, they did sign Oli Udoh, who we don't know anything about, and they signed him for cheap. But when they signed him, he reminded me of when they signed James Hurst 4 years ago, and we didn't know anything about him. He's a guy who has worked with their current offensive coordinator, senior offensive line assistant, and they chose him to be probably that type of guy. And they, as James told us, he let the Saints know this was possible. It's probably why they signed Oli Udoh. I think Oli Udoh is the new James Hurst. We don't have 50 starts that we've seen where we know we can trust him, but I think he's placeholder guy. And then they're going to give Penning a chance to win a starting job. They're going to give Saldivari a chance to win a starting job. If neither of those guys can start, then you got to have 2 new guys that aren't on the team right now. One, I think, in the first round of the draft. The other, potentially, Andrus Peat or somebody like him.
Well, that'll actually lead us into our next segment by Hard High Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. It's time for our final predictions. What do you think is most likely for the Saints going to do in the draft with the 14th pick?
I mean, I think it's incredibly obvious they're taking an offensive tackle at the 14th pick, unless they get shut out. I mean, I saw Daniel Jeremiah had a tweet today saying something like 5 teams are trying to trade up for an offensive tackle. Last night, he had something saying like there's no more obvious need in the NFL than the Saints need a tackle. So I think obviously if you're looking for one and you want to have your choice between a couple people, you got to get to 13 or higher. But that was going to be telegraphed no matter what. James Hurst leaving doesn't telegraph that. People probably assume that anyhow with the Trevor Penning situation. Even if they didn't know about Ryan Ramczyk, that's kind of where you're looking like they're probably going to take a tackle. So I think it was a known thing regardless, but it's even more known for sure now. Like it was shouted, and now there's a blimp with a banner behind it kind of saying, this is a spot you got to get to. But I think they're obviously going to take a tackle at 14.
Yeah, I mean, it's been nothing but bad news over the last 24 hours for the Saints situation.
24 hours? Like 24 months?
Yeah, no kidding. But it felt like they could sit at 14 and get a really good tackle. It's why we said, all right, needs going to meet, opportunities going to meet. And then there's been multiple reports about like just these hints that J.C. Latham's going to go higher than anyone thinks, that there was another mock draft we saw yesterday that had all 4 of the top 4 tackles going in the top 10 and all these trade ups. And if you have to trade up, you have to trade up ahead of the Saints to get an offensive tackle. So that's like, oh, well, maybe they're going to have to miss out on an offensive tackle. And now we realize one of their safety nets is missing. I mean, to me, I think they're going to draft an offensive tackle in round 1. And the best case scenario is that they do that at 14. The worst case scenario is that they feel like they have to trade up to do it. I mean, I really, really do not want to see the Saints have to use a future second, definitely not a future first. Like those, they need too many good young players to use 2 picks on one guy. So I really hope the draft falls for them to where 2 of them are still around at 11, at 12, at 13, and they feel like they can get one of these 4 guys we have up on the screen. Joe Alt, it's not going to be Joe Alt. Olu Fashanu, Elias Fuaga, and J.C. Latham. If those guys start going 5, 7, 8, or 9, we could see a real dire situation. In that case, I would almost tell the Saints just lean into the skid at this point and take Brock Bowers or Roma Dunze or whatever great talent fell to you, and then do patchwork on the offensive line. But I'm really worried that they're that all of these factors, Ryan Ramczyk, James Hurst, Trevor Penning, is going to make them feel like they have to trade up for their guy.
I don't know. I feel like worst case scenario is not getting one at all, and then like having to take like Blake Fisher in the second. I just don't. I don't know that they can run a team without an offensive line. Like, I feel like trading up and getting one, I don't know. Like, if you have to do it, I think not getting one in the first round is worse than getting one somehow. Like, I think you have to get one somehow. I think if you get into the season and it's week 5 and Derek Carr's getting sacked 6 times a game, I think you would probably sit there and say, damn, I would trade,
whoever
Keon Coleman to have a starting left tackle. And I think that's just probably the reality of it. I mean, they'll get killed on Thursday night, by us included. We'll hate it, but the reality of the situation is if like you don't have one, that's worst case scenario. I think is trying to operate with that patchwork line, and it's just it's going to get everybody killed. Kendrick Miller is going to be hurt. Alvin Kamara is going to be hurt. Derek Carr is going to be hurt. Nathan Peterman's going to be starting games. I mean, that's kind of the reality of not having an offensive line. But yeah, I think it's bad and bad. It's bad or worse. Yeah. It's worse or more worse, kind of, I guess. Like, if you got to trade up, I would be disgusted by it. But not having one and watching that, I just know in November what our conversation is going to be. And if you're sitting there, I really do think that you'd say, well, like, yeah, I give up wide receiver 3. You know, I'd be cool going into the season with Cedric and Chris and Rashid plus the left tackle more so than, nobody and all these receivers. Because those receivers don't mean a damn if you can't throw the ball to them.
So, you're exactly right. Look, and conversely, I'm going to feel a lot better about this team if one of these 4 guys is penciled in at left tackle the first day we show up at a right tackle. The 2 guys on the left would be left tackles. The 2 guys on the right would be right tackles. Luckily for the Saints, they need both. Yeah,
I mean, you might be right. The right answer might be leaning into the skid and just not giving a damn and just kind of doing what you can and drafting Blake Fisher and hoping for the best. And maybe it does work out. But
the only reason I say that is I really do like 14 guys in this draft. I think there's value to be had at the 14th pick if you can take the player that falls to you. Because if 4 offensive tackles go in the top 10 and 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10, that means somebody really good has fallen to 14.
I agree.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So
it's just
hopefully it's one of these guys on this list.
The need is so insane. I don't think I've ever seen a need like this ever. They have literally 0 tackle, like 0 starting tackles. Now they don't have, like, you don't know who's starting at guard. Like, it is a insane situation. Like, you don't even have like the left guard where you're like, well, there's at least one good piece on this side of the line. Like, there's nothing. I've never seen anything like it. And I think it's just kind of like, I would have anxiety if I was running this team. Like, you're looking at it and you're looking at that hole. It's almost
kind
like
of anxiety that makes you trade up from 14 to 10.
I honestly might. I mean, this is like the kind of thing that kind of like would make someone take like a loan sharky type of loan. Like, you feel like you're about to get like your legs busted out by your bookie. So you go take a loan with some guy saying the VIG, you know what I mean? Like, it's that bad that, like, I think you do something desperate in this situation almost. And I kind of hope they're able to avoid it. I really do. But it really does feel like you're just kind of looking at the undertow out in the water and you're swimming right for it. And like, what do you do? It's a very bad situation.
We have our final mock draft for the members only coming up tomorrow. And one scenario popped into our head for the first time because the trade was offered to us. I hate the idea of trading 2 for 1. We did because we know this is what's going to happen. We know we're going to be sitting there with the Jets are on the clock at number 10 being like, we're all sitting in our seats ready to type because it's going to say the Saints are on the clock any second. If they move up from 14 to 10 and turn the second rounder into a third rounder, feel a lot better about that than just a straight up 2 for 1.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But final actual predictions. We've got the worst case. We've got the best case. I'm going to be optimistic, and I think they stay at 14 and still get Fuaga. That's my ultimate prediction.
I just can't believe we're sitting here the day before the draft and like all these reports are coming out because like 48 hours ago I felt like, well, they're absolutely going to get one of them. It just might not be the one they covet the most. And now like the talk is, well, maybe none of them will be there. And it's like, what the hell? Like how is this even possible? But yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to get one. I think that one of them is going to be there, and they'll be okay with it.
One bit of good news that's coming out in these reports, I'm seeing a lot of reports about J.C. Latham being in play at 5 or 7. And if he goes as one of the top 2, I think the Saints would like that because I think
they like Fashanu.
I think Fashanu and Fuaga, well, they like Alt, but I think they might like Fashanu and Fuaga more than Latham from whispers you've been hearing and reporting and stuff like that. But so Latham going early would maybe be one stroke of good luck.
We're going to hit a quick break. Stick around for more NewOrleans.Football.
Shrimp Remoulade combos are back at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. Zesty shrimp remoulade served with fried shrimp, catfish, or soft-shell crab starting at $10.99. Or try one of our spring specials, catfish le feet, or lemon caper fish with crab meat. Now at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
We're back at our new studio at Veterans Memorial Boulevard. Now it's time for our money segment presented by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. Yesterday, we got a chance to talk to Mickey Loomis. You can check the full interview out on NewOrleans.Football. But one of the big topics was his history of trading up in the draft almost every year while never trading down. It's actually a total of 26 straight trades where the Saints have moved up. And the last time they moved down was in 2007. First of all, should the philosophy change this year?
It depends. I mean, it's the reality of the situation. It depends. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't really want to see trades up, but if it's desperate enough, I guess. But I think ideally, no. I don't want to see them trade up. I don't want to see him trade back in the first round. I don't know if I want to see him trade back in the second round. It just kind of really depends on what's available there. But in the first round, ideally, they're able to sit there and make their pick at 14. Now, if you're SOL on the tackles, maybe then it makes sense to move back because you aren't addressing your most pressing need anyhow. But if you can get one of the tackles, I think trading out of 14, I can't be convinced of a scenario where it really makes sense.
No, if one of those guys is available, or Brock Bowers is available, or Roman Dunze is available, no matter what. And Mickey Loomis just said it the other day. He's like, I trust my scouting enough. And look, that's the fools. That's where the analytics come in and say, well, don't trust your scouting because every scout in the history of the NFL has batted 50% at best. So stop trusting your scouting. But he's like, I can't say, no, we'll take the lesser player. And you get it. I mean, he's being honest when he says that, and you understand it. But I mean, yeah, if ever there was a time to trade down, there are external factors that are different for the Saints right now. They used to have 45 names written in ink on their roster a lot of years where they only needed 4 or 5 picks to round things out. They used to have a team that was going to go out and win 13 games for a lot of years, and one more player could have pushed them over the edge. And this year, not only do they not have that, they have an older roster with a lot of holes. They don't have a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick. So more picks, I think, more than ever makes sense for the Saints. I actually think it's in play, but I'm not going to bet on it. I think if you told me they're either going to move up or down, bet on which one is going to happen. I'm going to bet on up again. They're definitely going to move up with those 5th-rounders.
Yeah, well, we have a super chat. It's from Larry Moore. It's not a question, more like a statement. He said, tired of this new era and darkness, but appreciate you guys and what you're doing. Much love. We appreciate you too, Larry.
Thank you very much.
So continuing on with this, Mike, you had a write-up on the website exclusively on NewOrleans.Football, so check it out because you're not going to get any other coverage like it. But you broke down 9 guys that are good, 7 that are bad, and 10 that are somewhere in between. So let's
26 moves up. Yep.
Yeah. So let's start off with the good.
I think their history kind of shows. I think if you want to base your opinion just on these 26 trades, I think the end result is you can make a case for it. I mean, you don't have Alvin Kamara on this list. He's the absolute best one. But Olave, Adebo, McCoy are the 3 most recent good ones. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's on that list. David Onyemata's on that list. Von Bell, Brandon Cooks, Thomas Morstead. There's more in the good column than the bad or the in-between column. There have been times where the philosophy worked out. It's probably about 40% though. So just like the draft.
Yeah.
I probably the only one I'd probably move A.T. Perry up into like one of the most recent goods. I think even if he does like nothing,
I kept
else,
all three of last year's picks in somewhere in between.
If A.T. Perry gives you nothing else ever, get like the 200 yards and the touchdown catch, and he was part of the wackiest play in most recent team history. The Jameis 90-yard throw that traveled 10 yards through the air, 10 yards in distance, but 90 yards through the air. That was good enough for me. Like I need to see no more. But I think he's hit though for real.
That's fair. I actually toyed with putting Mark Ingram in the good too. I still have a little trouble with using a first and a second on any running back, but he was statistically until Alvin Kamara passed him.
I'd have Ingram in the good. I'd have Ingram in the good. I'll stand up for that one.
So that could be 11 goods out of 26. The weird thing when we get to the bad is how many of the bads are recent. If we had done this 2 years ago, it would be like, 10 goods, only about 4 bads. But then the Marcus Davenport trade, 4 years ago, I guess. I should have said 6 years ago. But the Marcus Davenport trade did not work out for them. The doubling up on picks in 2022 and using one of them on Olave, one of them on Penning, that did not work out for them. What else on here that's really recent that didn't work out? Zach Bond, 2 third-rounders, trading the entire last day of the draft for Adam Troutman, moving up for Tommy Stevens. So, like, a lot of the bad have happened just in the last handful of drafts that have brought their percentage down, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they were doing good for a while. I mean, they really were, and then they kind of hit the skids a little bit. So, yeah, I got no arguments with that.
Now, let's hit the in-between.
I mean, I don't mind what they did last year. All their trade-ups were Saldivari, Hainer, and Perry on the last day of the draft. But, you're working with the kind of material that you can easily swap out for, an undrafted rookie. They have a lot of success with undrafted rookies. They have 4 fifth-rounders, 2 sixth-rounders, a 7th-rounder this year. Play around with those picks as much as you want.
And look, these guys, I mean, they can shift. Like if Nick Saldivari becomes a good starter, that becomes good. It can also become bad if he doesn't. Jake Hainer, if he becomes a backup, it's good. If he doesn't, it becomes bad. Yeah, I guess trading up for Landon Young. Landon Young's just such a weird. Like it's like you got so many useful years out of him that out of his 6th-round pick. Like I almost want to call it good, but I guess like in the context of like contributors and everything, it hasn't quite happened there yet. But he saves you from paying somebody else. But yeah, I mean, they've done okay here. They've done okay.
This would be a resounding, it's the right thing to do, if not for 2018, 2020, and 2022.
Yeah, recent history. I mean, they were on fire. That's their scouting. That's their scouting and drafting as a whole. Though they were on fire until they weren't. And but unfortunately, like recent history is all that matters. The trade in 2008 doesn't matter anymore. It's the recent history, and recent history says you're not good at it, and they need to change that if they're going to trade up again.
Yeah, it's all about what you did for me lately.
You're right.
So let's go to our Martin's question of the day. Martin's is home to a wide selection of handpicked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. Martin's, so much more than just wine. This question comes from Hunter McKinney at ReaganHunter09. What's the biggest headache for the Saints? Falcons drafting Dallas Turner or Malik Nabers?
I like this question because these are guys we're not talking about a lot because we've got such tunnel vision on the offensive tackles. But these are 2 more guys who are going to probably both go in the top 10, unless the tackles move up. One of these guys slips to 11 or 12. These are 2 guys I'd love to be talking about the Saints maybe drafting. Mm-hmm. I mean, early on in the process, probably especially before they signed Chase Young in free agency and left this huge gaping hole at offensive tackle, Dallas Turner felt like the kind of guy they might move up for. So in one sense, having him being the guy getting after the Saints offensive line and Derek Carr and being the guy the Saints wish they could have had instead would torment them more. I mean, Atlanta already has a lot of pass catchers, but Atlanta's going to get a good pick. What I actually think is the worst case scenario for the Saints is that Atlanta trades out of the 8th spot to a team that goes up and takes an offensive tackle away from the Saints there, which is very much in play as a possibility.
I think the biggest headache for the Saints here is obvious. I mean, Dallas Turner attacks they don't have anyone to block them. So, I mean, that's a huge problem. They have nobody to block them right now. So I think that's a huge problem. But like the other thing, I think that there's just more positional value with an end than a wide receiver for the obvious reason that you can bracket a wide receiver and take him out of a game. Like there's not a lot you can do to take a great pass rusher out of the game and be able to kind of like overcome it without making yourself vulnerable other areas. So Dallas Turner, if he's good and the Saints aren't good at blocking, he's a game wrecker twice a year. So I think that makes him the biggest headache for them right now.
Well, that'll do it for this episode. As y'all all know, it's drive season, baby. So make sure you're locked into NewOrleans.Football, and we'll catch you next time.